Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we are on to another chapter of the Tao Te Ching. Here we are speaking about chapter 23, and it is entitled Speaking from Tao. And so this is about speaking from a place where we are connected, speaking from a place where we aren't full of anxiety about what it is we're saying. It's about really kind of letting our words just come out without thinking about them too much, like just say what needs to be said and don't think about what the ramifications are going to be because of what you say. Because if what you're saying is honest, and if what you're saying is like true to what's happening in this moment, then it's going to be perfect. That doesn't mean everyone's going to like it. It doesn't mean that you're going to not have to face some shit, but it does mean that it's going to be perfect. And we're going to get into why that's okay, why it's okay that you might have to grow and change. It's like you're here to have certain experiences. And so say what needs to be said and let it go. All right, so speaking from Tao. When you speak, say what is to be said, but no more. Neither wind nor storms last all day. Nature expresses itself completely. No matter how wild it may get, then it returns to stillness. When you open yourself to Tao, you say what is to be said. Everyone will agree because when you speak from Tao, only Tao can be heard. He who aligns with Tao will only hear Tao. He who aligns with manifestation will only hear manifestation. He who aligns with failure will only hear failure. How it is heard is not your concern. Trust what is to be said, and everything will fall into place. This is where we have to once again return to the idea that the experiencer is the one having the experience. So it's not so cut and dry. Right? Like when you say something and someone doesn't understand what you mean, well, so what? You said what needed to be said. They heard what they needed to hear. Now, I've said this for years. What you say and what I hear have nothing to do with one another. If I interpret what you say in a way that triggers me, well, that's my shit. Doesn't necessarily mean anything about you. If it makes you feel bad that happened, that is your shit. You're the one having the experience of feeling bad that you made me feel bad. And I'm the one that had the experience of being triggered by what you said. Two totally different experiences that have nothing to do with one another. And we both have to go back to our corners and deal with what we have to deal with. These three lines, he who aligns with Tao will only hear Tao. He who aligns with manifestation will only hear manifestation. And he who aligns with failure will only hear failure. No matter what you say, what the person is aligned with that is listening to you, they're the ones that are going to be interpreting what you say. Remember, every word that you have in your vocabulary has a slightly different meaning and energetic vibration than everybody else. And so even if I use the word the, how I use that word and how you use that word are going to be a little different. And so it's important to understand that it's not about how we're heard. It's about what we say. Now, I often talk about the idea that you're listening to yourself also sometimes. I don't want to discourage that, but I do want to say, like, look, just say what needs to be said. You don't have to hear it. You just have to say it. And if you're open, it'll come through you. And you don't have to worry so much about what it is you're saying. You just say what needs to be said. And then when you do say what needs to be said, it'll be heard perfectly. You may have experienced this as being a speaker, or you may have experienced this as being like an observer of someone saying something that would be like out of context or to a different person, completely inappropriate, right? But the person they're speaking to gets it. And it brings their connection like so much closer. But under different circumstances, with a different person hearing, you never know what those are going to be. So, this verse also talks to me a little bit about the idea that anyone can be aggrieved by anything. So if you're trying to alter your words to keep people happy, well, once again, you're under the influence and you're never going to get out from under the influence. So say what needs to be said. Now, if you say what needs to be said and you get canceled, then that needed to happen so that you can learn how to better connect and learn why it is you said what you said, or whatever ends up happening. Because when you say something and something comes back to you, right, you have to deal with the ramifications of what you said. Well, then that probably wasn't really from Tao, right? Unless it is a lesson that you need to learn in order to grow closer to this connection with Tao. It's complicated. This is why we start the Tao Te Ching with words can't express it. You can't understand what there is no prescribed text or series of actions. There's no right answer. There's no series of actions that are going to take you to the right place. You are simply out here in the world living your life. And as you do that, you will have certain experiences. Some of those experiences will be speaking, and some of those experiences will be had listening or observing. Some of those experiences will be had in all sorts of ways. Right? And so, like it says here, when you speak, say what is to be said, but no more. How many of you have gotten in tirades with people because you're trying to get them to understand, or they're trying to get you to understand? Just say what needs to be said. Shut the fuck up. Like, no one, like, stop it. Like, nobody cares. This is your experience. As soon as you say what needs to be said, if you have feelings about it, look at it. If you say what needs to be said and someone comes after you and you have the need to prove yourself, look at it. If you say something and someone disagrees with you and you feel hurt by that, look at that. These are your experiences and have nothing to do with that other person. When you say what needs to be said and then go and do your work, do the work that you need to do to examine who you are and what influences you're living under and all of these sorts of things. Well, now you're starting to do some good work. But just say what needs to be said. Here it talks about weather and storms and stuff. Neither wind nor storms last all day. Nature expresses itself completely. And no matter how wild it may get, it then returns to stillness. And this is the thing, like when you're speaking, you can get wild. You can say what needs to be said. You can yell at somebody and do something, but don't stick on it. Get off the topic, move on as quickly as you can and learn from the experience that you had. The people that are listening, maybe they will, maybe they won't. Go back home and do the work to understand their experience so that they can learn more about themselves. But that's not up to you. You can't tell them to do that. Either they're going to or they're not. Your job is to do your work. And the more your work you do, the more their work they'll do. Because you'll be surrounding yourself with people that do that. Because that's how it works. When you open yourself to Tao, you say what is to be said, and everyone will agree. Because when you speak from Tao, only Tao can be heard. Now, if you're focused on failure, Tao will show you failure. If you're focused on manifestation, Tao will show you the manifestation. If you're focused on Tao, Tao will show you Tao. So even though it says it might seem contradictory to some, right? Like only Tao can be heard. Well, if only Tao can be heard, and Tao is love, and Tao is all these things, and Tao is this connection, and Tao is not nice. Tao doesn't care. Tao doesn't give a damn about you and your feelings, right? Tao doesn't care if you survive or die, or it doesn't matter. Tao is simply here to give you an experience so it can continue to expand. To some degree. Of course I can't fathom Tao, but so if you're aligned with manifestation and you hear someone speaking from manifestation and that makes you raise your fist and get angry, well, that is simply a lesson that Tao is giving you to learn. If you learn from that or not, Tao doesn't care. It's just going to keep giving you the lesson over and over, and you'll keep shaking your fist and you'll keep doing what you do, and that's all fine. But that's what this is. Like even though only Tao can be heard, how Tao is heard is going to be different depending on the person having the experience. So how it is heard is not your concern. Trust what is to be said. Just say what you need to say, and everything will fall into place. Doesn't mean you're not going to get a lesson or two out of it, but everything is going to fall into place. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter 23, speaking from Tao. Oh, love you guys. This is such great text. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please leave comments and do all of that kind of stuff. I would love to be in touch with you. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.